Okay, so check this out. A couple of days ago, the CMAs were on, the Country Music Awards, and my wife, being from Northern California, of all places, is the biggest country fan I know. Hands down, I can't even think of who would be number 2 or 3. Biggest country fan I know. Been married over 9 years now. We've been together for over a decade. So because of that, I'm very exposed to country music, very familiar with it. Now, personally, it's always been a part of my life. In fact, I was telling her this the other day after we watched the CMAs, that growing up, country music is the only music I knew about. We had a record player, and I'm from the same town as the country band Alabama, Fort Payne. And so we had the records, that's what was played. My mom listened to country music on the radio. That's all I knew up until maybe I was in the 2nd grade, 1989. Then New Kids on the Block came out, and then I finally heard some kind of music that wasn't country. So the first 8 years of my life, most of the 80s, I only knew country music. That's how I grew up. And I was telling my wife that, and there's a little bit of irony attached to the fact that, so my mom is half Mexican, and then we realized the other half is not Italian really so much as it is Sephardic Jewish and Middle Eastern. So that's what the MyHeritage DNA test revealed and taught us. So just imagine, there's irony. If you're familiar with country music, there is definitely irony in the fact that my grandfather, who we thought was Italian but was Sephardic Jewish and Middle Eastern, all he ever listened to was country music. Anytime I was in his car, country music. Over his house, he's listening to country music. And then my mom, same thing. She's half Mexican and then Sephardic Jewish and Middle Eastern. She's listening to country music. And they're from Buffalo, New York. They moved down to Alabama where I was born and raised, but there's a lot of irony there. Why? Because when you think of country music fans, you think of people who are more European than I am. You just do, and have thicker Southern accents than I do. You just do. Now, I get it. All across America, people like country music. People in Australia, New Zealand like country music. People like country music. You don't have to be Southern and mainly European to like it. I get it. What I am saying, though, is it's undeniably at least a little bit ironic to see someone who's not Southern and predominantly European, that likes, even for my wife to be from Northern California and to be the biggest country fan I know, even to me that's ironic because it's not as cliche and predictable as the stuff that you hear in country music. But here's what I just want to say out loud. Let's think about diversity in country music as far as ethnicity goes. Obviously, we've got Darius Rucker, and one of my favorites by default. I've always loved him, from the Hootie and the Blowfish days all the way up to now. You have to love Darius Rucker. He's legit. He's the real deal. But even when you look at diversity in country music beyond him, because he's the main obvious one, there's not a lot. In fact, I'm struggling to think of one Jewish country music singer. I'm sure there's some Jewish songwriters. I know there's a guy last name Shapiro, and I think a guy in Old Dominion is as well. I'm pretty sure he's Jewish. But it's name a Jewish country singer, name an Asian country singer, name a Middle Eastern country singer. So what I'm saying is, and what I'm not saying is, oh, it's bad that there's not more diversity in country music. I mean, I'd like for there to be, but my point is this. There's definitely irony when someone who is ethnically diverse is in country music, because country music is this one thing. Yet, however, who introduced me to country music? My mom, who was Mexican and Sephardic Jewish and Middle Eastern via Italy, and then her dad, which was again from New York, the same ethnic background. That's how I was introduced to music, country music, through diversity. So I just think it's interesting. Can you relate to me? Can you understand why I think this is at least somewhat fascinating? Because it's a genre that's not known for diversity. Now, granted, if you ask, when you look at the CMAs, they make it pretty diverse. They invite diverse acts on there, and they want to make it something beyond just European descent people. But in reality, most people I know that listen to country music are not ethnically diverse. The new Power Rangers movie that came out, there's a guy who's an African American and he loves country music. But see, that's the point. it's ironic because most African American people don't listen to country music. That's a fact. So therefore, when you see an African American guy saying, I love country music, I think, oh, that's cool. I'm glad that he feels part of what I can relate to. But at the same time, that's not the norm. So I just wanted to talk about that it's interesting and fascinating that anytime you find a country music fan who is ethnically diverse, obviously I want to see more of that. But at the same time, there's the flip side of that is country music appealing to people of different ethnic backgrounds? I want us to discuss this. I think this is interesting. Tell me more, especially if you're something other than mainly European descent and at least casually like country music. I'm not saying it's my favorite kind of music, but it's always been a part of my life and there's no getting away from it, especially when I married my wife.